I thought I had it all figured out: a beautiful wife, a healthy son, and a life that looked perfect from the outside. But then, one morning, my 6-year-old asked his mother a simple question that made her freeze in terror. Should I tell Dad about last night? In that moment, everything I thought I knew shattered like glass. What my son saw that night would expose a betrayal so deep it would force me to make an impossible choice: confront the lies head on or do something far more devastating. See, the thing about revenge is that silence cuts deeper than any words ever could, and by the time she realized what I was doing, it was already too late. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. I've always loved the quiet of early mornings. There's something peaceful about being the first person awake in the house when the world outside is still dark and everything feels like it belongs to you alone. My name is Marcus Reed, and I'm a mechanic. I've always loved the quiet of early mornings. There's something peaceful about being the first person awake in the house when the world outside is still dark and everything feels like it belongs to you alone. My name is Marcus Reed, and I'm a mechanic. I fix cars for a living. I get my hands dirty every single day, and I'm proud of it. There's something honest about working with your hands, about taking something broken and making it whole again. This particular morning started like any other. I woke up at 5:30, careful not to disturb Evelyn beside me. She'd gotten home late again last night. Some important meeting that ran long, she'd said. Her side of the bed was cold when I reached over, like she'd been as far away from me as possible all night. I pushed the thought aside and headed downstairs to start the coffee. Our kitchen was nice. Really nice. White marble counters that Evelyn had insisted on, stainless steel appliances that cost more than my first car, and one of those fancy espresso machines that looked like it belonged in a coffee shop. Everything in our house was like that: expensive, perfect, carefully chosen. It was Evelyn's world, and I just lived in it. I poured my coffee into a regular mug, not one of the delicate cups Evelyn preferred, and started making Noah's breakfast. My son, 6 years old, with my dark skin and Evelyn's straight nose, and a smile that could light up the darkest room. He was the best thing I'd ever done with my life. I heard his little feet patting down the stairs before I saw him. Noah appeared in the doorway, still wearing his dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up in about 15 different directions. "Morning, buddy," I said, grinning at him. He climbed onto one of the kitchen stools and yawned so big I could see all his teeth. "Morning, Dad." I slid a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of him. "Eat up. We've got to get you to school on time today." Noah picked up his fork but didn't start eating right away. He had this look on his face, the one he got when he was thinking about something important. I'd learned to recognize that look over the years. "Dad? Yeah, buddy? Should I tell you about last night?" I felt something shift in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "What about last night?" Before Noah could answer, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Evelyn appeared in the doorway, already dressed in one of her power suits, navy blue, perfectly tailored, with heels that clicked on the hardwood floor. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and she had her phone in her hand like always. She looked at Noah, then at me, and I saw something flash across her face. Fear, maybe, or panic. "Good morning," she said, her voice a little too bright. "Morning," I replied. She moved quickly to the coffee maker, pouring herself a cup with hands that weren't quite steady. I noticed. I always noticed the little things. "Noah was just about to tell me about last night," I said casually, watching her face. Evelyn froze. For just a second she went completely still, the coffee cup halfway to her lips. Then she laughed, a sharp, nervous sound that didn't match her usual controlled demeanor. "Last night?" she asked, looking at Noah with wide eyes. "Honey, what are you talking about?" Noah scrunched up his face, confused. "When you came home really late, and the man— you had a bad dream, sweetie." Evelyn interrupted quickly. Too quickly. Remember? We talked about this. It was just a dream. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, my heart was pounding. I watched the way Evelyn gripped her coffee cup, the way her jaw tightened, the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. But, Mom, Noah started. Finish your breakfast, Evelyn said, her voice sharp now. You're going to be late for school. The kitchen fell silent, except for the sound of Noah's fork scraping against his plate. I sipped my coffee and said nothing, but I saw everything. The way Evelyn's hand shook slightly as she set down her cup, the way she kept glancing at me, trying to read my face, the way she quickly kissed Noah on the head and said she had to leave early for a meeting. I'll see you tonight, she said, grabbing her purse and briefcase. Yeah, I said simply. See you tonight. She paused at the door, looking back at us. For a moment, I thought she might say something else, but then she was gone, the front door closing behind her with a soft click. I turned back to Noah, who was pushing his eggs around his plate with a troubled expression. You okay, buddy? I asked gently. He nodded, but he didn't look at me. Mom said it was a dream. Maybe it was, I said, even though I knew it wasn't. The drive to Noah's school was usually one of my favorite parts of the day. Just me and my son, listening to whatever music he wanted, talking about his friends or his teacher or the new level he'd reached in his video game. Today, he was quiet. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. He was staring out the window, his little face serious. Hey, I said softly, you know you can always talk to me, right? About anything. Noah's eyes met mine in the mirror. Even if Mom said not to? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did Mom say exactly? He looked down at his lap, picking at a loose thread on his backpack. She said some things are private, that I shouldn't talk about stuff that happens at night. I kept my voice calm and gentle. Did something happen that scared you? No, he said quickly. I woke up because I heard voices, and when I looked out my window, I saw Mom getting out of a car. But it wasn't our car, and there was a man driving. Every muscle in my body went tense, but I forced myself to stay relaxed, to keep breathing normally. What time was this? I don't know, it was really dark. And when I came downstairs, Mom was there, and she looked different, like when she gets mad at work, and she told me to go back to bed and not tell anyone, especially you. I pulled up in front of the school and put the car in park. Then, I turned around to look at my son directly. Noah, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong, okay? And you can always tell me things. Always. I'm your dad, and my job is to keep you safe and happy. He nodded, looking relieved. Okay. But if Mom asked you to keep something private, I'm not going to force you to tell me more. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. Deal? Deal. He smiled a little, and some of the tension left his small shoulders. I got out and opened his door, helping him with his backpack. He hugged me tight around the waist, and I bent down to hug him back. Love you, Dad. Love you too, buddy. Have a great day. I watched him walk into the school, backpack bouncing with each step, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. The auto shop where I worked was called Martinez and Sons, owned by a man named Carlos who'd given me my first real job 10 years ago. It wasn't fancy, just a big garage with 4 bays, tools scattered everywhere, and the constant smell of oil and metal. But it was honest work, and I was good at it. You're quiet today, Lena said, rolling out from under a Toyota Camry on her creeper. Lena Brooks had worked at the shop for 3 years. She was 29, black like me, with natural hair she wore in twists and an easy smile that made customers trust her. She was also one of the best mechanics I'd ever worked with, and one of the few people I considered a real friend. Just thinking, I said, not looking up from the engine I was working on. About? Life. She stood up, wiping her hands on a rag. That's specific. I glanced at her and saw genuine concern in her eyes. Lena had always been able to read me better than most people. Everything okay at home? She asked. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to say that I thought my wife was cheating on me, that my 6-year-old son had accidentally revealed something he wasn't supposed to, that my perfect suburban life might be built on lies. But I couldn't make the words come out. Yeah, I said finally. Everything's fine. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but if you need to talk, I'm here. You know that, right? Yeah, I know. We worked in silence for a while, the familiar sounds of the shop, wrenches clanking, the air compressor hissing, someone's radio playing old school hip hop, filling the space around us. I tried to focus on the work, on the simple problem solving that usually cleared my head. But I couldn't stop thinking about Evelyn's face this morning, the fear in her eyes. Around lunchtime, Carlos called me into his office. It was barely bigger than a closet, with a desk covered in invoices and a calendar from 2023 still hanging on the wall. You good, Marcus? He asked, leaning back in his chair. Yes, sir. You seem distracted. That's not like you. I appreciated Carlos. He was a good boss, fair and honest, and he'd always treated me with respect. But I wasn't about to pour out my personal problems to him. Just didn't sleep well last night, I said. I'm fine. He nodded, accepting the answer even though I could tell he didn't quite believe it. All right, but take care of yourself. Can't have my best mechanic burning out. I smiled despite everything. Thanks, Carlos. That evening, I got home before Evelyn. I picked up Noah from school, helped him with his homework at the kitchen table, and started dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs, one of Noah's favorites. I heard Evelyn's car in the driveway at 7:15. The front door opened, and she came in carrying her briefcase and 3 shopping bags from some expensive store downtown. Hi, she said, setting everything down in the entryway. Hey, I replied. Dinner's almost ready. She walked into the kitchen and I noticed she was still in her work clothes, still perfectly put together, still looking like she belonged in a magazine spread about successful women. Smells good, she said, but her voice was flat. Noah ran in from the living room. Mom, I got 100 on my spelling test. That's nice, honey, Evelyn said, barely glancing at the paper he was waving at her. She poured herself a glass of wine from the bottle she kept in the fridge, the expensive kind that cost $60 and tasted like every other wine to me. I watched her, really watched her, the way she avoided my eyes, the way she checked her phone every 30 seconds, the way she seemed to be anywhere but here, even though she was standing right in front of us. We sat down to dinner, the 3 of us at our big dining table that could seat 8. It felt empty. How was work? I asked. Busy, Evelyn said shortly. The merger is taking up all my time. Right? The merger? She looked at me sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just acknowledging what you said. The tension was thick enough to cut. Noah looked between us, his fork frozen halfway to his mouth. Dad made meatballs, he said quietly, trying to fill the silence. I can see that, Evelyn said. We ate in painful quiet. I kept my eyes on my plate and tried to figure out what I was going to do. Confront her? Demand the truth? Hire a private investigator like they did in movies? No, none of that felt right. I was going to watch, I was going to pay attention, and I was going to wait for her to show me who she really was. After dinner, Evelyn disappeared into her home office, a room I rarely entered because it was her space, filled with her expensive furniture and her awards and her perfect life. I cleaned up the kitchen while Noah took his bath, and then I read him a story before bed. Dad? He asked as I was tucking him in. Yeah, buddy? Are you and Mom fighting? My heart broke a little. No, we're not fighting. But you seem sad? I sat on the edge of his bed and brushed his hair back from his forehead. Sometimes grown-ups have things they need to work through, but that's not your job to worry about, okay? Your job is to be 6 years old and have fun and do well in school. He nodded, but he still looked worried. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Noah. So much. After he fell asleep, I went downstairs and found Evelyn still in her office. I stood in the doorway, watching her type furiously on her laptop, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. Evelyn? I said quietly. She jumped slightly, then turned to look at me. What? Are you happy? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. What kind of question is that? A simple one. I'm fine, Marcus. I'm busy. That's not what I asked. She turned back to her computer. I don't have time for this right now. I have 3 presentations to finish before tomorrow. I stood there a moment longer, waiting for something. I don't know what. An admission, an apology, some sign that the woman I'd married was still in there somewhere. But she just kept typing, and eventually, I walked away. Later that night, after Evelyn had finally gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room with all the lights off. I picked up my phone and opened the app for our home security system. We'd installed cameras when Noah was born, one at the front door, one at the back, one in the driveway. I scrolled through the footage from the night before. There was Evelyn's car leaving at 7 p.m. Normal. Then nothing for hours. Then, at 2:30 in the morning, a black Mercedes pulled into our driveway. The footage was grainy, but I could see 2 figures in the front seat. They sat there for several minutes before the passenger door opened and Evelyn got out. The driver didn't get out. He just waited while Evelyn stood there, adjusting her clothes, smoothing her hair. Then she leaned back into the car. I couldn't see clearly, but it looked like she kissed him goodbye. The Mercedes backed out of the driveway and disappeared. Evelyn walked to the front door and let herself in. And then the strangest thing, the footage from inside the house, the camera in the front hallway, was missing. Just gone. A gap of about 10 minutes. She'd deleted it. I set my phone down and sat in the darkness, letting the truth wash over me. My wife was cheating on me. My wife had been cheating on me, probably for a while, and my 6-year-old son had seen something he wasn't supposed to see, something that had scared him enough to want to tell me until his mother had convinced him it was just a dream. I should have felt angry. I should have felt rage boiling up inside me, should have wanted to storm upstairs and confront her, should have wanted to break something, but I didn't feel any of that. I felt cold, calm, clear. I had spent 12 years of my life with Evelyn. We'd met when I was 20, working at a coffee shop to pay for community college classes at night. She'd been a customer, a business major at a prestigious university, slumming it at a cheap coffee place because it was close to her apartment. She'd smiled at me, actually talked to me, saw me as more than just the guy who made her latte, or at least I'd thought she had. We dated for 3 years before getting married. It hadn't been easy. Her father, Richard Hale, had made it very clear that he didn't approve of his daughter dating, and especially marrying, a black mechanic with no college degree. But Evelyn had insisted she didn't care what her father thought. She'd said she loved me for who I was, not what I did or how much money I made. I'd believed her. Now, sitting in the darkness of our expensive house, I wondered if I'd been a fool. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and make Noah breakfast. I'd take him to school. I'd go to work and fix cars and talk to Lena and Carlos. I'd come home and make dinner and help with homework. And I'd watch. I'd pay attention. And I'd figure out what to do next. Because the one thing I knew for certain was this. I wasn't going to confront Evelyn. I wasn't going to yell or beg or demand answers. I was going to let her show me exactly who she was. And then I was going to decide what kind of man I wanted to be in response. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm again. Evelyn's side of the bed was empty, the sheets barely disturbed. I didn't know when she'd come to bed or if she'd slept at all. I went through my routine like always. Coffee, breakfast for Noah, the familiar rhythm of morning that felt like the only solid thing in my life right now. Noah came downstairs, still sleepy, and climbed onto his stool without a word. I slid a plate of pancakes in front of him, his favorite, and watched him pour way too much syrup over them. Big day at school? I asked. He shrugged. Just normal. I was about to ask him more when I heard footsteps. Evelyn appeared, already dressed in a gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite hide. "Morning," I said. She barely glanced at me. "Morning." She poured coffee into a travel mug, added cream and sugar with quick, efficient movements, and grabbed her briefcase from the counter. "I have back-to-back meetings today," she said, checking her phone. "I'll be home late." "How late?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I don't know, Marcus." "Late." "Okay." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or suspicion. Like she was trying to figure out what I knew. I gave her nothing. Just a calm, steady gaze. "I'll see you tonight," she said finally, and then she was gone. Noah waited until the front door closed before speaking. "Dad? Yeah, buddy? Is Mom mad at me?" The question hit me hard. "No, Noah. Mom's not mad at you. She's just stressed about work. You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. I made a mental note to spend extra time with him today, to make sure he knew that whatever was happening between me and Evelyn, it wasn't his fault. At work, I tried to focus on the cars. There was a Dodge Charger that needed a new transmission, a Honda Civic with brake problems, and a Ford F-150 that was making a noise I couldn't quite identify. Simple problems with clear solutions. Unlike my life. "You're doing it again," Lena said, appearing beside me with a wrench in her hand. "Doing what?" "That thing where you stare at an engine like it personally offended you." I almost smiled. "Just trying to figure out this noise." "Uh-huh," she crossed her arms. "You know, I've worked with you for 3 years. I know when something's wrong." I set down my tools and looked at her. Lena had always been straight with me. No games, no pretense. Maybe I needed that right now. "If you thought someone you loved was lying to you," I said slowly, "what would you do?" She was quiet for a moment, considering. "Depends. What kind of lie?" "A big one." "Would confronting them help?" "I don't think so." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Then I'd watch. I'd pay attention. And I'd protect myself." "Yeah," I said. "That's what I thought." She touched my arm briefly, a gesture of support. "Whatever it is, Marcus, you'll handle it. You're one of the strongest people I know." "I don't feel strong right now." "Strength isn't about how you feel," she said. "It's about what you do, even when you're falling apart." That evening, I picked up Noah from school and noticed something different. Mrs. Alvarez, our neighbor, was outside watering her garden. She was a kind woman in her late 50s who'd lived on our street for 20 years. She knew everyone and saw everything. "Marcus," she called out, waving. I waved back, helping Noah out of the car. "How are you, Mrs. Alvarez?" "Good, good. And this handsome young man?" She smiled at Noah. "I'm good," Noah said shyly. Mrs. Alvarez came closer, lowering her voice. "I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I wanted to mention something. Last week, I saw Evelyn coming home very late. I was up with my insomnia, you see, and I happened to look out the window. She was with someone, a man in a fancy car. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. "Oh? I just thought you should know. I'm sure it's nothing, probably just a colleague dropping her off after a late meeting. But in my day, we were more careful about appearances. She patted my arm. I'm sure it's innocent. Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez, I said quietly. I appreciate you looking out for us. Inside the house, I helped Noah with his homework while my mind raced. So it wasn't just the one night, it had happened before. Multiple times, probably. How long had this been going on? How blind had I been? Noah was working on a math worksheet, carefully writing numbers with his pencil, when he suddenly looked up at me. Dad, can I ask you something? Always? Do you and Mom love each other? The question knocked the air out of my lungs. I set down the carrot I'd been chopping for dinner and sat down next to him at the table. Why do you ask that, buddy? He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. You just seem sad. And Mom is always on her phone, and you don't talk much anymore. Kids see everything. They notice things adults think they're hiding. I'd been foolish to think Noah wouldn't pick up on the tension. Grown-up relationships are complicated, I said carefully. Sometimes people love each other but have trouble showing it. Does that make sense? I guess. He paused, then added, I just want you both to be happy. I pulled him into a hug. This little person who somehow had more wisdom than most adults. You're a good kid, Noah. The best. And no matter what happens, your mom and I both love you very much. That will never change. Promise? Promise. Evelyn came home at 9:30 that night. I was in the living room, pretending to watch TV, when I heard her car in the driveway. She walked in carrying her briefcase and looking exhausted, or maybe just guilty. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. Hi, she said. Hey, there's dinner in the fridge if you're hungry. I ate at the office. Of course she did. She set down her things and poured herself a glass of wine, her third or fourth this week, I'd noticed. She'd never been much of a drinker before. How was your day? I asked, more out of habit than genuine interest. Long, exhausting. The merger is a disaster. Sorry to hear that. She sat down on the opposite end of the couch, as far from me as possible while still being in the same room. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the TV playing. Some show neither of us was actually watching. Marcus, she said suddenly, yeah? Are you happy? I turned to look at her, surprised. It was almost the same question I'd asked her the night before. Why do you ask? She swirled the wine in her glass, not meeting my eyes. You seem distant lately, like you're somewhere else. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here she was, the one who was cheating, the one who was lying, asking me if I was happy. I'm fine, I said. Are you sure? Because I said I'm fine, Evelyn. She flinched at my tone. I rarely used that voice with her, the one that left no room for discussion. Okay, she said quietly. More silence. Then she stood up abruptly. I'm going to bed. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Good night. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, looking back at me. Marcus, What? She opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. Nothing. Good night. I watched her go upstairs, and I wondered what she'd been about to say. An apology? A confession? Or just another lie? Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to everything. The way Evelyn jumped whenever her phone buzzed. The way she suddenly started taking calls in her car, claiming she needed privacy for work. The way she'd started dressing even more carefully, wearing perfume she'd never worn before. I noticed she was deleting messages constantly. I'd walk into a room and she'd quickly close whatever was on her phone screen. She'd started keeping her phone with her everywhere, even taking it to the bathroom. And the late nights continued. 3 times in one week, she came home after 10, claiming meetings or client dinners or urgent deadlines. I said nothing. I just watched. But it was eating at me. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd lie in bed and replay our entire relationship in my head. Had there been signs I'd missed? Had she always been like this, and I'd just been too in love to see it? Or had I changed into someone she couldn't respect anymore? One night, unable to sleep, I got up and went downstairs to the kitchen. I was surprised to find Evelyn there, sitting at the counter in the dark, her laptop open in front of her. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She jumped, startled. "God, Marcus, you scared me." "Sorry." I moved to the coffee maker. "Working late?" "Just finishing something." I poured myself water instead of coffee and leaned against the counter. In the dim light from her laptop screen, I could see her face clearly. She looked stressed, worried, almost scared. "Evelyn," I said quietly, "are you having an affair?" The question hung in the air between us. I hadn't planned to ask it. The words just came out. She went completely still. "What?" "You heard me." "That's—" She laughed, but it sounded wrong, forced. "That's ridiculous. Where would you even get that idea?" "Noah saw you come home late one night, with a man." Her face went pale. "He told you." "That?" "He's 6 years old, Evelyn. He doesn't know how to lie yet." She stood up quickly, closing her laptop. "It was nothing. Just a colleague who gave me a ride home. My car was in the shop." "Your car has been fine." "Well, I thought it was making a noise. I was wrong. You're overreacting." I set down my glass and looked at her directly. "Am I?" "Yes. You're being paranoid and jealous for no reason. I work long hours, Marcus. You know that. It's part of my job. Just because you're home by 5 every day doesn't mean everyone else is." The comment stung. There it was, the subtle dig at my job, at my life, at who I was. "I see," I said quietly. "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly, but we both knew she did. "It's late," I said. "You should get some sleep." "Marcus." "Good night, Evelyn." I left her standing in the kitchen and went back upstairs. I heard her come up an hour later, but she didn't come to our bedroom. She slept in the guest room that night. The breaking point came a week later. Evelyn had insisted we attend some fancy charity fundraiser at a downtown hotel. It was important for her work, she'd said. Important people would be there. She needed me to come and play the supportive husband. I'd agreed, mostly because I didn't have the energy to argue. The event was exactly what I'd expected. A ballroom full of rich people in expensive clothes, drinking champagne and pretending to care about whatever cause they were supposedly supporting. I wore the one suit I owned, the one I'd bought for our wedding, and I felt completely out of place. Evelyn, of course, fit right in. She worked the room like a professional, shaking hands, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny, introducing me to people who clearly didn't care who I was. "And this is my husband, Marcus," she'd say. "He works in automotive." Not, "He's a mechanic." Not, "He fixes cars." "He works in automotive." Like that somehow made it sound more acceptable to her world. I smiled politely and shook hands and tried not to feel like a fraud. Then I saw him. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with perfect hair and a suit that probably cost more than my car. He had that easy confidence that came from never having to worry about money or what people thought of him. He was talking to a group of people near the bar, laughing loudly, commanding attention. I didn't know who he was, but I felt Evelyn tense beside me the moment she saw him. "Who's that?" I asked quietly. "Grant Holloway," she said, her voice tight. "Venture capitalist, very successful." "Friend of yours?" "Business acquaintance." But the way she said it, the way she couldn't take her eyes off him, told me everything I needed to know. This was him, the man from the Mercedes, the man she was having an affair with. "I need to go say hello," Evelyn said. "It would be rude not to." "Of course." I watched her walk over to him, watched the way his face lit up when he saw her. Watch the way they stood just a little too close, the way his hand lingered on her arm. I stood there with my glass of champagne I wasn't drinking and felt something cold settle deep in my chest. A woman approached me, someone Evelyn had introduced me to earlier. I couldn't remember her name. "Your wife is very impressive," she said. "Yes, she is. You must be so proud of her accomplishments." "Very proud." "And what do you do again?" "I'm a mechanic." She blinked, clearly not sure how to respond to that. "Oh, how interesting." She made an excuse and walked away quickly. I looked back at Evelyn and Grant. They were still talking, their heads close together. Then I saw him lean in and whisper something in her ear. She smiled, really smiled, in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. I set down my glass and started walking toward them. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I needed to meet this man, needed to see him up close, needed to understand what he had that I didn't. "Evelyn," I said as I approached. She turned, and for just a second I saw panic in her eyes. "Marcus." "Hi, I was just— Grant, this is my husband, Marcus. Marcus, this is Grant Holloway." Grant held out his hand with a wide smile. "Great to meet you, man. Evelyn talks about you all the time." I shook his hand, noting the expensive watch, the designer shoes, the cologne that probably cost $100 an ounce. "Nice to meet you too." "So, you work in automotive?" he asked. "What company?" "I'm a mechanic. I work at Martinez and Sons." His smile faltered slightly. "Oh, a mechanic. That's that's great. Honest work, right?" "Very honest." There was an awkward pause. Evelyn jumped in quickly. "Grant is helping fund our new tech expansion. He's been invaluable to the company." "I'm sure he has," I said evenly. Grant laughed, a little too loud. "Well, someone's got to keep the economy running, right? Though I've got to say, I don't know how you guys do it. Working, with your hands all day, dealing with grease and oil, I'd go crazy. Give me a boardroom over a garage any day." He said it like it was a joke, but there was an edge to it, a dismissiveness, like what I did was beneath him. "Different strokes," I said simply. "Absolutely. Hey, respect to you, man. Takes all kinds, you know. Hell, my driver does great work keeping my cars running. Couldn't do it myself." And there it was, the casual condescension, the subtle message that I was in the same category as his driver, hired help beneath his notice. Evelyn looked uncomfortable. "Grant, we should probably— Yeah, I need to go schmooze some investors anyway." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Good meeting you, Mark." "Marcus," I corrected. "Right, Marcus. Take care, buddy." He walked away, and I stood there feeling like I'd just been patted on the head and dismissed. Evelyn wouldn't look at me. "We should mingle," she said. "Is that him?" I asked quietly. "What?" "The man you're sleeping with. Is that him?" Her eyes went wide. "Marcus, not here. People will hear." "Is that him?" "No, God no. I told you I'm not having an affair. You're being paranoid." But her voice shook when she said it, and she still wouldn't meet my eyes. "Okay," I said, "if you say so." We didn't speak for the rest of the event. That night, on the drive home, the silence in the car was suffocating. Evelyn stared out the window, her jaw tight, her hands clenched in her lap. We pulled into our driveway, and before I could even turn off the engine, she exploded. "How could you do that?" she hissed. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of Grant?" "I asked you a question. You accused me of having an affair at a professional event. Do you know how that looked? Do you know how it looks that you spend more time with him than with your own family?" She got out of the car, slamming the door hard enough to make me wince. I followed her into the house, where she spun around to face me in the entryway. "You're paranoid," she said, her voice rising. "You're insecure and paranoid, and you're seeing things that aren't there because you can't handle the fact that I'm successful and you're— She stopped herself, but the damage was done. I'm what? I asked quietly. Say it, Evelyn. Nothing, forget it. No, say it. I'm what? She looked at me with something like contempt. You're stuck, Marcus. You've been working at the same garage for 10 years. You have no ambition, no drive. You're content to just exist. And I can't live like that. I can't be with someone who doesn't want more. Every word was a knife. I see. That's all you ever say? I see. Okay. Fine. Don't you ever want to fight for something? Don't you ever want to be more than what you are? I'm happy with who I am. Well, I'm not. The words burst out of her like they'd been trapped inside for years. I'm not happy, Marcus. I haven't been happy for a long time. The truth, finally, out in the open. Then, why didn't you say something? I asked. Why didn't you talk to me? Because talking to you is like talking to a wall. You just nod and say okay, and nothing ever changes. Is that why you're sleeping with Grant Holloway? She froze. I'm not. Don't lie to me anymore, Evelyn. Please, just don't lie. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then she looked away, her shoulders sagging. He understands me, she said quietly. He understands what it's like to want more, to strive for something bigger. He sees me as an equal. And I don't. You see me as your wife, as Noah's mother, not as me. I felt something breaking inside my chest. When did it start? Does it matter? Yes. She was quiet for so long I didn't think she'd answer. Then, 6 months ago. 6 months. Half a year of lies. I need to check on Noah, I said, my voice hollow. Marcus. But I was already walking away, climbing the stairs to my son's room, needing to see something pure and innocent and real. Noah was asleep, his little chest rising and falling peacefully. I sat on the edge of his bed and just watched him, this perfect thing that Evelyn and I had created together, and I wondered how we'd gotten so lost. When I finally went to our bedroom, Evelyn was already in bed, facing away from me. I got ready for bed in silence and lay down on my side, leaving a gulf of space between us. In the darkness, I heard her voice, small and uncertain. Marcus? Yeah? I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't change anything. Eventually, I heard her breathing even out as she fell asleep, but I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, and made a decision. I was done trying to hold this together. I was done pretending everything was fine. It was time to start planning my exit. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. It was like a fog had lifted and I could finally see the path forward. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to try to win Evelyn back or compete with Grant Holloway and his expensive suits and his boardrooms. I was just going to leave, but I was going to do it right, carefully, thoughtfully, in a way that protected Noah above everything else. Evelyn was already gone when I got up. She'd left early, probably to avoid facing me after last night's conversation. There was a note on the kitchen counter. Had to go in early. We'll be late again tonight. I crumpled it up and threw it away. Noah came downstairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Where's Mom? She had to work, buddy. It's just us this morning. Okay. He didn't seem surprised or even disappointed. That broke my heart a little. I made him breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes, his absolute favorite, and we ate together at the kitchen table. Just the two of us. It felt peaceful. Right. Dad? Noah asked between bites. Yeah? Can we go to the park after school today? Just you and me? Absolutely. We can do whatever you want. He smiled, and I realized I hadn't seen him smile like that in a while. Not the real smile, the one that lit up his whole face. Maybe he'd been feeling the tension too. Maybe he'd been waiting for things to get better, just like I had. At work, I pulled Lena aside during lunch break. We sat in my truck in the parking lot, eating sandwiches from the deli down the street. I need some advice, I said. Shoot. If someone wanted to prepare to leave a situation, a bad situation, what would they need to do? Lena was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. We talking about what I think we're talking about? Yeah, she nodded slowly. Okay, first thing, documents, birth certificates, social security cards, tax returns, bank statements. Make copies of everything. Keep them somewhere safe, somewhere she can't access. Okay. Second, money. Open your own account if you don't already have one. Start putting money aside. Not a lot at once, you don't want her to notice, but regular amounts. Right. Third, evidence. If there's proof of whatever's happening, keep it. Screenshots, dates, times. You might need it later. For custody, maybe, or just for your own peace of mind. She looked at me seriously. You sure about this? I'm sure. And Noah? That's the most important part. Everything I do is for him. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You're a good dad, Marcus. Don't forget that, and don't let her make you think otherwise. Over the next week, I started gathering things quietly. During my lunch breaks, I'd go to the bank and open a new account that Evelyn didn't know about. I started transferring small amounts of money, 200 here, 300 there. Nothing big enough to trigger alerts or raise questions. I made copies of every important document I could find. Noah's birth certificate, our marriage license, tax returns from the past 3 years. I kept them all in a folder in my locker at work, somewhere Evelyn would never think to look. I took screenshots of the security footage from the night Noah had seen her come home late. I documented every late night, every lie, every time she claimed to be at work when I suspected she wasn't. I didn't know if I'd need any of it, but I wanted to be prepared. At home, I went through the motions. I made dinner, I helped Noah with homework, I made small talk with Evelyn when she was actually around, which wasn't often. She seemed relieved that I wasn't pushing the issue, that I wasn't demanding more conversations about Grant or our marriage or what she wanted. I think she thought I was backing down, accepting the situation. She had no idea I was planning my escape. One evening, about a week and a half after the fundraiser, Evelyn came home at a normal time for once. She seemed almost cheerful, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Hi, she said brightly, setting down her purse. Hey, I brought dinner. Thai food from that place downtown you like. I looked at the bag she was carrying, suspicious. What's the occasion? No occasion. I just thought it would be nice. She started unpacking containers. Where's Noah? Living room, playing with his Legos. Good. We should eat together, as a family. The word felt hollow coming from her mouth. Family. Like we were still that. Like we hadn't crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But I helped her set the table, and we called Noah in, and we sat down together like we'd done 1,000 times before. Evelyn was trying. I could see that. She asked Noah about school, actually listened to his answers, laughed at his jokes. She asked me about work, seemed interested when I told her about a particularly tricky transmission I'd fixed. It was almost like old times. Almost. I've been thinking, Evelyn said after we'd finished eating. Noah had gone back to his Legos, and it was just the two of us cleaning up. Maybe we should take a vacation, the three of us, go somewhere nice, the beach maybe, or the mountains. A vacation. Yeah, we could all use a break, some time to reconnect. I dried a plate slowly, thinking, when? I don't know. Next month maybe? I could take some time off work. Could you? She caught the edge in my voice. What does that mean? Nothing. Just seems like work is pretty important to you these days. Her jaw tightened. I'm trying here, Marcus. I know you are. Then why do you sound like you don't believe me? I set down the plate and looked at her directly. Because I'm not sure what you're trying to do, Evelyn. Are you trying to fix our marriage? Or are you trying to make yourself feel better about destroying it? She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair, isn't it? I told you I was sorry. I told you it was a mistake. What more do you want from me? I want you to be honest. With me and with yourself. I am being honest. Are you still seeing him? The question hung between us. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. I thought so, I said quietly. Marcus, I'm going to check on Noah. I left her standing in the kitchen and I heard her whisper something that might have been my name or might have been a curse. I didn't turn around to find out. That night, after Noah was in bed and Evelyn was locked in her office again, I sat in the garage, my space, the one place in the house that felt like mine. I was surrounded by tools and old car parts and the smell of motor oil. It felt honest, real. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. You okay? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Getting there. If you need anything, I'm here. Day or night, thanks. That means a lot. I set the phone down and looked around the garage. This was who I was. A mechanic. A guy who fixed broken things with his hands. A guy who came home dirty and tired but satisfied with a day's work well done. Evelyn was right about one thing. I didn't have ambition the way she defined it. I didn't want to climb corporate ladders or make six figures or impress people at fancy fundraisers. But that didn't make me less. It didn't make me unworthy of respect or love or basic human decency. It just made me different from her. And maybe that was okay. Maybe it was more than okay. Maybe it was good. I heard footsteps, and suddenly Evelyn was standing in the doorway of the garage. She was wearing sweatpants and one of my old t-shirts, her hair down, no makeup. She looked younger like this, more like the woman I'd married. Can I come in? She asked quietly. It's your garage too. She stepped inside, wrapping her arms around herself like she was cold even though it was warm. I can't keep doing this, she said. Doing what? Pretending. Fighting. I can't keep hurting you. I waited, let her talk. When we first met, she continued, I loved how different you were, how real. Everyone in my world was so fake, so concerned with appearances and status. But you were just yourself, completely, unapologetically yourself. And now? Now that difference feels like a wall between us. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, the things I loved about you started to feel like limitations. The honesty hurt, but it was better than lies. And Grant doesn't feel like a limitation, I said. Grant understands the pressure, the constant need to perform, to be better, to achieve more. He gets it in a way you never could. Because I don't want those things. Because you don't want those things, she agreed. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just not what I need. I nodded slowly. Then, what are we doing, Evelyn? Why are we still here? I don't know. She wiped at her eyes. Part of me keeps hoping we can figure it out, that we can find a way back to each other. And the other part? She was quiet for a long moment. The other part knows we're already too far gone. There it was, the truth we'd both been avoiding. I think you're right, I said softly. She looked at me, surprised. You do? Yeah, I think we've been over for a while now. We just didn't want to admit it. Because of Noah. Because of Noah, I agreed. But staying together and being miserable isn't good for him either. He's 6, but he's not stupid. He can feel the tension. Evelyn sat down on an overturned crate, her shoulders slumping. I never wanted this. I never wanted to be the villain in our story. You're not a villain. You're just someone who wants something different than what we have. I cheated on you, Marcus. That makes me a villain. It makes you human. And it makes you someone I can't trust anymore. She nodded, accepting that. So, what happens now? I don't know, I said honestly, but I think I need to move out. For a while, at least. Give us both space to figure out what we really want. What about Noah? We'll figure it out. We'll make a schedule, share custody, do whatever's best for him. He's going to be so hurt. He's already hurt, I said gently. He's been asking me if we're fighting, if you're mad at him, if we still love each other. He knows something's wrong. Evelyn covered her face with her hands. God, I've ruined everything. We both did, I said. This isn't all on you. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't really true. I hadn't been perfect, but I hadn't betrayed her trust. I hadn't lied and snuck around and made her question her own sanity. Still, there was no point in assigning blame now. It wouldn't change anything. When? She asked. Soon. I need a few more days to find a place, to get things organized. She nodded, still not looking at me. Okay. Evelyn? Yeah? For what it's worth, I did love you. I do love you. Just maybe not in the way you needed. She finally looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I loved you too. I still do in a way. I'm just not sure it's enough. Yeah, I said. Me neither. The next few days were strange. Evelyn and I moved around each other like ghosts, polite but distant. She didn't come home late anymore. She ate dinner with us every night. She played with Noah, read him stories, tucked him in. It felt like she was trying to make up for lost time. Or maybe just easing her own guilt. I kept preparing. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with a pull-out couch for Noah. It was close to his school and the auto shop. I signed a 6-month lease. I packed slowly, methodically, my clothes, my books, personal items that Evelyn had never cared about anyway. I did it when she wasn't home, when Noah was at school, so they wouldn't see the evidence of my leaving piling up. Lena helped me find a used couch and a kitchen table. Carlos gave me some dishes his wife was getting rid of. Slowly, the apartment started to feel like a place I could actually live. On Saturday morning, I took Noah to the park like I'd promised. We spent 2 hours on the playground, him running and climbing and laughing while I pushed him on the swings and caught him at the bottom of the slide. This is fun, Dad, he said, breathless and grinning. Yeah, buddy, it is. Can we do this every Saturday? I'll do my best. We got ice cream afterward, sitting on a bench and watching people walk by. Noah had chocolate chip, and he got it all over his face like he always did. Dad? He asked, licking his cone. Yeah? Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question knocked the breath out of me. I'd been preparing for this conversation, but I hadn't expected it to happen here, now, with him covered in ice cream. What makes you ask that? I said carefully. Tyler's parents got divorced last year. He said it started with his dad sleeping on the couch a lot and his parents not talking. You've been sleeping on the couch. I had been, for the past week, unable to share a bed with Evelyn anymore. Your mom and I are having some problems, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. We're trying to figure out what's best for everyone. Does that mean you're leaving? It might mean I live somewhere else for a while, but that doesn't mean I'm leaving you. You'll still see me all the time, every day probably. His lower lip trembled. But you won't be home. I pulled him close, not caring about the ice cream getting on my shirt. Home is wherever you are, Noah. If I'm not in the same house, I'll be close by, and you can come stay with me whenever you want. We'll have sleepovers and watch movies and eat too much junk food. Promise? Promise. He was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, is it because of Mom's job? It's complicated, buddy. It's not really about anyone's job. Tyler said his mom got a new boyfriend. Does Mom have a new boyfriend? God, kids really did see everything. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, but that's between your mom and me. It's not your fault, and it's not something you need to worry about. Okay. He finished his ice cream, then looked up at me with serious eyes. Dad? Yeah? I want to live with you. When you move, can I? My heart broke and swelled at the same time. We'll have to figure out a schedule with your mom, but you'll spend lots of time with me, I promise. Good, because you make better pancakes. I laughed despite everything. Thanks, buddy. That evening, I sat Evelyn down after Noah was in bed. We were in the living room, the space between us on the couch feeling like miles. I found a place, I said. I'm moving out next Friday. She nodded, like she'd been expecting this. Okay, I want to talk about Noah, about how we're going to handle this. I want him with me during the week, she said immediately. For school and routine. You can have him on weekends. That's not going to work for me. Her eyes flashed. Why not? Because I'm his father, Evelyn. I'm not some weekend babysitter. I want split custody, week on, week off, or something close to it. That's disruptive. He needs stability. He needs both his parents. And frankly, you've been working late so much, I've been doing most of the parenting anyway. She bristled at that. That's not fair. It's true. When's the last time you took him to school? Made him dinner? Helped with his homework? I've been busy. I know. You've been very busy. With Grant. We stared at each other, the tension thick. Fine, she said finally. We'll split it. But I want him for holidays. We'll alternate. Christmas with you one year, me the next. Same with Thanksgiving, birthdays, everything else. And summer? We'll figure it out. She was quiet for a moment, then, are you going to tell him about Grant? That's your choice, but eventually he'll figure it out. Kids always do. I don't want him to hate me. Then maybe you should think about what kind of example you're setting. About honesty, about respect, about how you treat people who love you. She flinched, and I felt a small, bitter satisfaction. I'm going to bed, she said, standing up. We can work out the details later. Evelyn? She paused, not looking at me. I meant what I said the other night. You're not a villain. You're just someone who made choices. We both did. But I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this because I deserve better. And so does Noah. For a long moment, she stood there, her back to me. Then she walked away without another word. I sat alone in the living room for a long time after that, feeling the weight of everything that was ending and everything that was about to begin. The days until Friday moved slowly. I told Noah gently that I was getting my own apartment, that we'd have special time together, just him and me. He seemed okay with it, excited even, about having two homes. Kids were resilient. I just hoped I wasn't messing him up too badly. Thursday night, I finished packing the last of my things. I'd been doing it gradually all week, a little each day, so it wouldn't be a big, shocking moment. Most of my stuff was already at the apartment. Now, I just had to actually leave. I found Evelyn in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. It was her fourth night in a row drinking. I'd noticed. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, I said, while Noah's at school. I think that's easier. She nodded, not looking at me. Okay. I'll pick him up tomorrow afternoon and bring him to the apartment. Show him his space. Then I'll bring him back here. Okay. Evelyn. She finally looked at me, and I saw that she'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know I keep saying that, but I am. I'm so sorry. I know. Do you think, do you think we'll ever be okay again? As friends, maybe? I thought about it honestly. Maybe, eventually, for Noah's sake, but not for a while. She nodded, accepting that. Will you be okay? Financially, I mean? I can help. I don't want your money, Evelyn. I never did. I know. But still, Noah's expenses. I'll take care of my son. You take care of yours. The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but I didn't take them back. She set down her wine glass with a shaky hand. Right, of course. We stood there in awkward silence, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now just counting down the hours until we could stop pretending. Good night, Marcus, she said finally. Good night. I went upstairs to the guest room where I'd been sleeping, lay down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and leave this house, leave this life, start over. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something close to relief. Friday morning came quietly. I woke up early, like always, and made coffee in the kitchen one last time. The house was silent. Evelyn was still asleep, or maybe just avoiding me. I didn't blame her. I stood at the counter, drinking my coffee and looking around at this kitchen that had never really felt like mine. The expensive appliances, the marble counters, the fancy espresso machine I'd never learned how to use. None of it mattered. I washed my cup, dried it, and put it away. Then I carried my last two boxes out to my truck. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say that we hadn't already said. I drove to the apartment, my apartment now, and unpacked the final boxes. It didn't take long. I didn't have much. Clothes, books, a few photos of Noah, some tools, the basics. When I was done, I stood in the middle of the living room and took it all in. The used couch from Lena, the kitchen table from Carlos, the pull-out bed where Noah would sleep when he stayed with me. It was small, simple, nothing like the house I'd just left. It felt like home. I picked Noah up from school that afternoon. He came running out with his backpack bouncing, excited to see me like he always was. Dad, can we go to your new place now? Absolutely, buddy. That's exactly where we're going. He climbed into the truck, buckling himself in, chattering about his day at school. Something about art class, and a kid named Emma who could draw really good horses. I drove us to the apartment, watching him in the rearview mirror, memorizing this moment. My son, happy and innocent, not yet fully understanding that his parents' marriage was over. When we pulled up, Noah looked at the building with wide eyes. This is it. This is it. Come on, I'll show you around. The apartment looked better with Noah in it. He ran from room to room, exploring, touching everything, asking a million questions. Where will I sleep? I showed him the pull-out couch in the living room. Right here. We can make it really cozy. You can help me pick out blankets and pillows. Cool. And where's the TV? I don't have one yet, but I thought maybe we could read books instead or play games. He seemed to think about this. Okay, that sounds fun. We spent the next hour making the place more Noah-friendly. He helped me arrange his toys in a corner. We hung up a drawing he'd made in school on the refrigerator. I let him pick which cups he wanted to use. The blue ones, because blue was his favorite color. Dad? He asked, sitting on the couch and swinging his legs. Yeah? Is Mom going to come here? Probably not, buddy. This is my place. Your mom has the house. So, you really aren't together anymore? It wasn't a question. He was stating a fact, processing it in his 6-year-old way. No, I said gently, sitting down beside him. We're not. But that doesn't change how much we both love you. I know. He leaned against me. Tyler said divorce is hard at first, but then it gets normal. Tyler's right. It might feel weird for a while, but we'll figure it out together. Okay. He was quiet for a moment then. Can we get pizza for dinner, since it's our first night? I smiled. Absolutely. Pizza sounds perfect. I brought Noah back to the house that evening, as promised. Evelyn was waiting in the living room, and she looked terrible, like she hadn't slept, like she'd been crying all day. "Hi, honey," she said, forcing a smile for Noah. "Did you have fun?" "Yeah, Dad's apartment is cool. We got pizza, and he's gonna let me help pick out decorations." That's that's great, sweetie." Her eyes flicked to me, and I saw something raw there: pain, regret, maybe even panic. "I'll pick him up Monday after school," I said. "We'll do Monday through Thursday this week, then you can have him Thursday through Sunday." "Okay," she said quietly. Noah hugged me tight. "Bye, Dad. Love you." "Love you too, buddy." I watched him run upstairs, then turn to leave. "Marcus," Evelyn said. I stopped but didn't turn around. I I didn't think you'd actually do it. Leave, I mean. I told you I was leaving." "I know, I just thought, I don't know what I thought." I turned to look at her then. Really look at her. She looked small somehow, standing in that big fancy living room in her expensive clothes, surrounded by everything she'd worked so hard to achieve. "Goodbye, Evelyn," I said, and then I walked out the door. The first week in my own place was strange, quiet. I'd gotten used to the sound of Evelyn's heels clicking on hardwood, her voice on work calls, the TV she always had on in the background. Now there was just silence. I went to work, fixed cars, came home to my empty apartment, made simple dinners for one, went to bed early. Lena checked on me constantly. "You doing okay?" She'd ask every day. "Yeah, I'm okay." "You don't have to be, you know. It's okay to be a mess." "I know, but I'm not. I'm good." And I was. There was a peace in the simplicity, in not walking on eggshells, in not wondering where Evelyn was, or who she was with, or what lie she'd tell next. My phone buzzed constantly those first few days. Texts from Evelyn. "We should talk. I miss you. This is a mistake. Please come home." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Then the texts changed tone. "You can't just ignore me. We need to discuss Noah's schedule." "This is childish, Marcus." To those, I responded simply, "Talk to me about Noah and I'll respond. Anything else, I'm not interested." After that, the messages about missing me stopped. Monday came and I picked up Noah from school. We went to the apartment, did his homework together, made dinner, mac and cheese from a box, which he thought was the best thing ever. "Mom never lets me have the kind from the box," he said, slurping noodles. "She says it's not healthy." "Well, once in a while won't hurt." We played board games that night, read books, talked about everything and nothing. When it was time for bed, I pulled out the couch and made it up with the new sheets we'd bought together, red, because he'd decided red was actually cooler than blue. "Dad," he said, already half asleep. "Yeah, buddy? I'm glad you have your own place." "Yeah? Why's that?" "Because you seem happier. You smile more now." I kissed his forehead. "I love you, Noah." "Love you too, Dad." I watched him fall asleep, this little person who saw more than anyone gave him credit for, and I felt grateful. For him. For this quiet life we were building together. For the chance to start over. The weeks blurred together. I fell into a routine. Work, Noah, the apartment, simple pleasures like Saturday morning pancakes and evening walks to the park. Evelyn called sometimes, but our conversations were brief. Logistics about Noah, nothing personal, nothing real. She tried a few times to bring up us, to talk about working things out, but I shut it down every time. There is no us anymore, Evelyn. There's just co-parents doing their best for their son. She didn't like that, but she eventually accepted it. One Saturday, about 6 weeks after I'd moved out, I was at the grocery store with Noah when I heard a familiar voice. "Marcus?" I turned to see Mrs. Alvarez pushing a cart toward us. "Mrs. Alvarez, hi." "And Noah." My goodness, you've grown. She smiled at him, then at me. How are you both doing? We're good. Really good. She studied my face, and I saw understanding in her eyes. She'd lived long enough to recognize when a man was healing from something painful. I'm glad to hear that, she said warmly. You look well. Thank you. I've seen your wife lately, she added carefully. She seems troubled. I'm sure she is. Mrs. Alvarez nodded. Sometimes we make choices that hurt the people who deserve it least, and then we have to live with those choices. Yes, ma'am, we do. She patted my arm. You're a good man, Marcus. Don't let anyone make you forget that. After she left, Noah looked up at me. Mrs. Alvarez is nice. Yeah, buddy, she is. Do you think Mom is okay? The question surprised me. What makes you ask that? She's been sad lately. When I'm at the house, she doesn't smile much. I knelt down so I was eye level with him. Your mom is going through some hard things right now, but that's not your job to fix, okay? The best thing you can do is just be yourself. Be her son. Let the grown-ups handle the grown-up stuff. Okay. He paused. But you're still happy, right, Dad? Yeah, Noah. I'm still happy. And I meant it. 3 months after I left, I ran into Evelyn unexpectedly. I was leaving the auto shop, heading to my truck, when a Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. A black Mercedes I recognized from the security footage. Grant Holloway was driving. Evelyn was in the passenger seat. They didn't see me at first. I watched as Grant parked, said something that made Evelyn laugh, then leaned over and kissed her. It should have hurt, seeing them together like that, seeing her with him in broad daylight, no longer hiding. But it didn't hurt. It just was. Evelyn got out of the car and froze when she saw me. The color drained from her face. Marcus, she said, I didn't know, we were just. You don't owe me an explanation, I said calmly. Grant got out of the car, looking uncomfortable. He gave me an awkward nod. Hey, man. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was handsome, successful, exactly the kind of man Evelyn had probably always wanted. The kind of man who fit into her world without having to change himself. Grant, I said simply. We were just grabbing lunch, Evelyn said quickly, like she needed to justify herself. Okay. I was going to tell you about us. I just didn't know when. You don't need to tell me anything, Evelyn. Your life is your own now. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. I got in my truck and drove away, watching them get smaller in my rearview mirror. That night, my phone rang. Evelyn. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. What? I'm sorry you had to see that today. It's fine. It's not fine. I know it must have been hard. It wasn't hard, Evelyn. It was just reality. You moved on. That's what people do. She was quiet for a long moment. Have you? Moved on? I'm working on it. With someone else? That's none of your business. Right? Of course. I just. She sighed. I wanted you to hear it from me, about Grant and me. We're together. Officially. Okay. That's all you're going to say? Okay. What do you want me to say? That I'm happy for you? That I'm heartbroken? What would change if I said either of those things? I don't know. I wanted some kind of reaction. I don't have one to give you, Evelyn. You made your choices. I made mine. We're both living with them now. Do you hate me? I thought about it honestly. No, I don't hate you. I don't really feel much of anything toward you anymore except hope that we can be good co-parents for Noah. That's it? That's all that's left? That's all that's left. I heard her crying softly on the other end. I thought you'd fight harder. For us. I thought you'd try to win me back. Is that what you wanted? For me to compete with Grant? To prove myself worthy of you? No, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to do that, Evelyn. I'm not going to chase someone who doesn't want to be caught. I'm not going to beg someone to love me. I'm worth more than that. I know you are, she whispered. I've always known that. Then why wasn't it enough? The question hung between us, heavy and unanswerable. I don't know, she finally said. I really don't know. Well, when you figure it out, you can tell your therapist because I'm done trying to understand it. Marcus. Good night, Evelyn. I hung up before she could say anything else. Life continued. Noah adjusted to the new normal better than I'd expected. He had his room at Evelyn's house and his pull-out couch at my apartment, and he seemed genuinely happy in both places. He talked about Grant sometimes. Mom's boyfriend taught me how to play chess, he'd say. Or, Grant took us to a fancy restaurant. It didn't bother me. Grant wasn't trying to replace me, and no one knew who his father was. Do you like Grant? I asked him once. Noah shrugged. He's okay. He's not as fun as you, and he doesn't make good pancakes. Well, that's what matters. I dated a little. Nothing serious. A woman named Sarah I met at the coffee shop. A teacher named Michelle that Lena tried to set me up with. But I wasn't ready for anything real yet. Maybe I wouldn't be for a while. That was okay. I was learning to be alone, learning to be enough for myself. At work, I got a promotion. Carlos made me shop supervisor, which came with a small raise and more responsibility. It wasn't a fancy title. It wouldn't impress people at fundraisers. But it made me proud. You've earned it, Carlos said, shaking my hand. You're the best mechanic I've got, and you're a good leader. The guys respect you. Thank you, sir. And Marcus, I'm proud of how you've handled everything, your personal situation. I know it hasn't been easy. No, sir, it hasn't. But I'm getting through it. That's all any of us can do. 6 months after I left, Evelyn called me. Not about Noah, not about logistics, just to talk. I've been thinking, she said, about us, about what happened, about what I said to you that night, about you having no ambition, about being stuck. It was cruel, and it wasn't true. Okay. I think I said those things because I was trying to justify what I was doing. If I could make you the problem, if I could make you somehow less than, then I could feel better about cheating, about hurting you. Probably. The truth is, Marcus, you were never the problem. You're a good man, a great father. You're honest and kind and steady. Those are good things, important things. I know they are. Grant and we're not working out. I should have felt something at that. Satisfaction, maybe, some kind of vindication. But I felt nothing. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Sure, I don't wish bad things for you, Evelyn. He's not you, she said quietly. He's exciting and ambitious, and everything I thought I wanted. But he's also selfish. He doesn't see me. Not really. And he definitely doesn't see Noah. That's unfortunate. I made a mistake, Marcus. A huge mistake. And I'm wondering if... Stop. What? Don't do this. Don't call me because things didn't work out with Grant and you're feeling lonely or regretful. Don't ask me to be your backup plan. That's not what I'm doing. That's exactly what you're doing. And I'm not interested. But we were good once. We could be good again. No, Evelyn, we couldn't. Because I can't trust you anymore. And without trust, there's nothing to build on. She was crying now. Please, Marcus. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking anyway. Please. Part of me, a small, weak part, wanted to say yes. Wanted to go back to the familiar. To try again. To believe that people could change. But the stronger part, the part that had been growing over these past 6 months, knew better. I hope you figure out what you're looking for, I said gently. I really do. But it's not me. It can't be me. Not anymore. What am I supposed to do without you? The same thing I've been doing without you. You learn to be okay on your own. You figure out who you are and what you really want, and you do better next time. There won't be a next time, she whispered. You were it for me. If that were true, you wouldn't have done what you did. I let that sit for a moment, then added, I need to go. Noah's coming over soon. Okay. Her voice was small. Marcus, yeah? Did you ever love me? Really love me? I thought about our first date, the way she'd laughed at my jokes, the morning she'd told me she was pregnant, terrified and excited all at once, the day Noah was born and she'd looked at me like I'd hung the moon. Yeah, I said honestly. I loved you. I loved who I thought you were. I loved the woman I married. But somewhere along the way, you became someone else, and I don't know that person well enough to love them. That's fair, she said quietly. That's more than fair. Take care of yourself, Evelyn. You too. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my apartment, feeling something settle in my chest. Closure, maybe, or just acceptance. A year after I left, I took Noah to the beach for a week. Just the two of us. We stayed in a cheap motel, ate seafood every night, and spent our days building sand castles and jumping in the waves. On our last evening there, we sat on the beach watching the sunset. Noah was 7 now, taller, his face starting to lose some of its baby softness. Dad? He said. Yeah, buddy? I'm glad you left Mom's house. The statement surprised me. You are? Yeah. You're happier now. And when you're happy, I'm happy. I pulled him close. This wise little person who'd taught me more about love and strength than anyone else in my life. I'm glad too, I said. It was hard at first, but it was the right thing. Do you think you'll get married again someday? Maybe, if I find the right person, someone who sees me for who I am and likes that person. Someone who likes pancakes, I laughed. Definitely someone who appreciates good pancakes. We watched the sun sink lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Dad? Yeah? I love you. I love you too, Noah. More than anything. Life wasn't perfect after that. There were still hard days, moments when I felt lonely or doubted my choices or wondered if I could have done something differently. But mostly, there was peace. I worked. I took care of Noah. I fixed broken things and felt satisfied at the end of each day. I ran into Evelyn sometimes, at Noah's school events, at pickup and drop off. We were polite, cordial. We talked about Noah and nothing else. She looked older somehow, tired, like the weight of her choices was finally catching up with her. Grant was gone. There was someone new now, another ambitious man in an expensive suit. I didn't ask about him and she didn't volunteer information. Sometimes, when I dropped Noah off, I'd see her watching from the window as I drove away. I never knew what she was thinking, if she regretted what she'd lost, if she was happy with what she'd gained. I didn't ask. It wasn't my business anymore. One Saturday morning, about 18 months after I'd left, I was making pancakes in my apartment when Noah came shuffling out in his pajamas. Morning, Dad. Morning, buddy. The usual. Extra chocolate chips? You got it. He climbed onto one of the stools at my small kitchen counter. Not marble, not expensive, just simple laminate that I'd installed myself. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever get sad about Mom and everything that happened? I flipped a pancake, thinking about how to answer honestly. Sometimes, not as much as I used to. Mostly, I just feel free. Free? Yeah, free to be myself. Free to live a life that feels honest. Free to spend time with you without all the tension and anger and sadness. That sounds nice. It is nice. I slid a plate of pancakes in front of him. You know what I learned through all of this? What? That you can't make someone love you the way you deserve to be loved. You can't change yourself into someone you're not just to make another person happy. All you can do is be yourself and hope that's enough for the right person. Was it enough for mom? No, but that says more about what she needed than what I lacked. He poured syrup over his pancakes, considering this. I think you're pretty great, Dad. Well, you're biased, but I appreciate it anyway. We ate breakfast together in comfortable silence, sun streaming through the windows of my small apartment, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: content, not deliriously happy, not without worries or problems, just content. And that was enough, more than enough. Sometimes, late at night when Noah was asleep on his pull-out couch and the apartment was quiet, I'd think about Evelyn, about the life we'd built and the way it had crumbled, about betrayal and hurt and the slow, painful process of healing. I'd think about how silence had been more powerful than rage, how walking away had been stronger than fighting, how rebuilding myself had been more important than destroying her. I'd never gotten the dramatic confrontation, the tearful apology, the moment where she realized what she'd lost. Maybe she had realized it. Maybe she hadn't. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I'd survived. I'd chosen dignity over revenge. I'd chosen my son over my pride. I'd chosen peace over the illusion of perfection. And in the end, that quiet victory was sweeter than any loud one could have been. I'd go to bed in my simple apartment with my secondhand furniture and my honest work and my beautiful son sleeping in the next room. And I'd feel like the richest man in the world because I had something Evelyn's money and Grant's connections and all the fancy fundraisers and expensive suits in the world couldn't buy. I had myself back, and that, I'd learned, was everything. The end.